Adventure, fitness, nutrition, and culture. Broadcasting live from Louisville, based in San Diego, California, this is Lionheart Radio, your active lifestyle headquarters.
Yo, for the record, this is my first podcast that I've ever been on.
No, as a guest?
As a guest.
Really?
Never done it. So.
Oh, shit.
You're the first. It's funny because.
That makes me feel a little special, actually.
Yeah, dude. I've never ever been on another podcast. This is when you contacted me, I was like, let's freaking do it.
Yeah, all right. We'll keep that as the intro then.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, welcome back to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Louisville, based in San Diego, California. And today I'm joined by Robbie Vogler, who is the host of the Big Red Express podcast.
Yes, sir.
The Big Red Express is a CrossFit-centric podcast.
Yep.
Interviews all the top names in CrossFit. Ben Smith, 2015 fittest man on earth. Mm-hmm. Dave Castro, CrossFit Games director.
Yeah.
And I've just started the process of binge listening through all of your old podcasts. So we're not a completely CrossFit-centric podcast at Lionheart Radio, mostly because I'm too ADD to do one thing for too long.
Oh, for sure.
I was way into CrossFit for a while. I worked hard, and I got to, 110 in SoCal.
Right, yeah.
And I was so burned out. Dude, I worked so hard to get there. And now I'm kind of, doing the ultra running thing. And with Lionheart Radio, we have, power lifters and everything. But here's the thing. If you are in the active lifestyle at all, you can't ignore CrossFit anymore.
Definitely not.
The things that it's done for USA weightlifting, for USA gymnastics, for the entire fitness community as a whole throughout the whole world, it's kind of undeniable.
No question.
Yeah, so thanks for being on today.
Yeah, man, no problem.
So what I'm thinking is, we were talking a little bit before the show, you've gotten to interview a bunch of really cool and top thought leaders and experts within CrossFit.
Yeah.
So throughout this show, I kind of want to tease out some of the things that you've learned from them.
For sure, man. Yeah.
And I know that Ben Smith was your mentor. He got you into CrossFit in the first place. How long have you been CrossFitting for?
For about, be 5 years in May. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It is crazy to think how long it's been, but I graduated from Liberty in May of 2012, and I started right when I got back, so about 5 years in May.
Okay, and you go to Ben Smith.
Correct, yeah.
Krypton, right?
CrossFit Krypton, yep.
Actually, you know what? I wanted to say something before we got going here.
Yeah.
So I just moved to Virginia Beach in September. And my roommate, my roommate, cousin, whatever, Joe Alexander, so he hit me up and he was like, hey, you need to come check out Are You Fit, which is a big competition. They line up Virginia Beach. It's on the sand. It's super cool, 2-3 day competition.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he was like, all right, you got to come check this out. And I was moving here from SoCal, and I was depressed because I was leaving SoCal. And I was like, all right, I'm going to check this out. It'll make me feel more like home,
Right.
So I get there, but I hear your voice because you were the MC.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this guy's voice. That's what I hit up Joe. I'm like, he was fucking meant for this, dude. This guy kills it.
Yeah, man, it was fun. And this year, when they did it on the beach, unbelievable. I remember when I saw it for the first time, saw the rig on the beach and just the platforms and all that, so I was like, this is freaking believable. I can't believe how big it's gotten in just a couple of years.
Yeah. And Alexander Custom Metalworks, which is my cousin's company, they actually built the rig.
Yeah, he's the man when it comes to that kind of stuff. I see him posting stuff all the time. I need to have him on my podcast because just the way that he is able to put together stuff and, he'll custom build stuff for you if you want it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he'll do gym equipment. He does home gyms, and he even does flowers and stuff like that. If you ever see it, he'll post them and they'll be gone in 10 minutes.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's even right now. He's trading his sleeve, his arm, his tattoo, for he basically built the guy a rig, gym equipment, and he's
hey, why not?
Yeah. And then another cool thing that you do is the Chalk Talk. Those are the ones I've been getting into lately. So. That's basically a mini-sode that you do, a mini episode.
Yeah, it's like a 10-minute episode. Don't want to get it too long, but just kind of whatever the hot topic is, whether it's drug testing, whether it's mentality going into different things. I actually got one coming out the day after we're recording this now.
Okay.
But so it's kind of just a way that I wanted more content for people. So I was just like, you know what, 10 minutes is nothing. They can listen to that when they wake up in the morning. They can listen to it on the way to the store. What have you? It's quick, it's easy, it's to the point, and I like to try to make them as relevant as possible.
Yeah, and right now there's a lot of news that's come out in the last 6 months about CrossFit, specifically changing, specifically the CrossFit Games.
Definitely, right.
So I listened to 3 of them on the way over here.
Yeah.
And I want to go through a couple of them. If
yeah, cool. Man, for sure.
The Progenics one.
Yeah.
So Progenics is out as a sponsor of the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
I was listening to your take on it, and you kind of took, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of took the side of Progenics.
Yeah, and I think the reason I did, and obviously I didn't, it was, I think the day or two after they had announced it, and I've got a lot of friends that are sponsored by Progenics. I got, obviously I use Progenics whenever I use recovery and stuff, so I can see that, but, when you go back and you look at it, you can kind of see both sides to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those that are listening that are not big into the CrossFit Games, Progenics is arguably the biggest supplement sponsor.
Definitely.
Well, definitely the biggest supplement sponsor. Arguably one of the biggest sponsors outside of Rogue, Killcliff.
Yeah, no doubt.
For the CrossFit Games.
For sure.
So for me, it made sense to me that schism I thought kind of would happen sooner.
Yeah.
Only because of like the manufacturing of Progenics and like basically because CrossFit has taken on this like crusade against Big Sugar.
Right, yeah.
And I'm sensitive to sugar, which is why there's like certain products that I like really pay attention to what's in products.
Definitely.
And I made my product basically because I really wanted something without the high glycemic index.
Right.
But so as you're looking, I went to, CrossFit launched this Crush Big Soda.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's kind of futile in their attempts because Big Soda is so big.
For sure.
Have you looked at all that?
I haven't really, and just because I don't know, whenever I read it, I don't really understand it in terms of just the medical and all the chemically,
Yeah.
And I understand, where they stand on it, and I know it's been a big issue over the past 6-7 months to a year, trying to beat diabetes and things like that, trying to attack the Coke industry, I guess you could say, really because they're firing after Coke.
Right.
In a lot of these ads that they're putting out there. But I'm wondering, like, what's your take as a supplement company, as a company that, is in that industry, when you heard the news of, and I don't mean to like turn the interview over to you though, but like when you heard that Progenics was going to be out as a sponsor, what was your kind of take as an owner of a company just like Progenics?
Well, there's part of it is the business side. So you're like instantly, I'm like, oh man, there's a hole, there's a vacuum.
Right.
Like we need, and I think we are going to actually be a sponsor at the CrossFit
Awesome.
Games this year. Most likely, I think we're going to get a booth. But my opinion, beyond just a supplement company owner, my opinion's kind of not skewed, but I have a very specific lens that I look at things through.
For sure.
And so I try to eat mostly a fat-adapted diet, so I'm like ketogenic. And it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
But I think as a whole, if you keep carbs to a minimum, you're going to be better off.
Right.
And so when you look at and you look at all these sedentary-based diseases, essentially, that Western culture is going through right now.
For sure.
I just heard that right now is the first time, not only the U.S. lifespan has been decreased for the first time in like 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I think nobody's probably doing more to effectively fight that than CrossFit.
Definitely not.
Between one, getting people to get off their ass and move.
Definitely.
Whether you agree with CrossFit being the right workout or not, I think it's all perspective. But you can't argue the fact that they got people off the couch, like in millions of people.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that, I don't know when this is going to be released, but we're upcoming the Open. The Open's coming up. And you just see the amount of people that sign up for the Open. You know what I mean?
So this will go live
like,
first week of the Open, next week.
Yeah. So, like, you got to think about the amount, like hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, not just in America. I mean, there's tons of people in America that do the Open, but hundreds of thousands all over the world. And I think that's one of the coolest things when you see from the first Open 5-6 years ago, whenever it was, to now, you're going to have 100, 200,000 people, kind of turning in things and going from there. I think it's a kind of a cool movement, what the CrossFit Games have done.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And when I started, not to get too far off on a tangent here, but like when anybody starts, especially if they were an athlete before, they get these grand ideas, like I'm going to the CrossFit Games.
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
So I had a year where I was like, you know what? You go to regionals and you buy a hat or something. You're like, I'm gonna be there next year.
I want to be on that fucking floor. Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, and then you participate in the Open,
right?
And then you get humbled real quick, and you realize like how good everybody else really is.
For sure.
And at this point, it's progressed to the point where it's a professional sport.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no... But not to get too sidetracked, so back on the Progenics, CrossFit and the sugar thing. I think, and I could be wrong, but Progenics is under a class action lawsuit right now.
Okay.
So if you go to progenicsexposed.com, they the guy that filed the lawsuit, I think that's his website.
Okay.
And it might be pseudoscience and it might be a bullshit lawsuit, so I don't want to
definitely
go too far on one angle. But I'm just personally okay with any time that sugar's not involved.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what CrossFit's trying to do, their big problem is that these companies that own the big soda companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi,
right,
they own all these other companies, and so under their umbrella is Gatorade, and then under Gatorade is so much of the research that you see with National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Right.
And so all of these recommendations, like basically what's happening is it's coming out that all of these companies that are owned by Big Soda are like pushing a lot of the research.
Definitely.
And so you can't tell me, like you're telling me that. And have you seen what's that sugar documentary?
It's on Netflix. I think everyone's seen it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So if you look at that, it's like it's finding its way in everything. The food we eat, the things that we buy, and it's in things that are supposedly healthy. So I think when you start looking, when you look at it objectively, I think it's good to just, anytime sugar's not involved, I'm excited about it.
For sure, and I think you're bringing up a lot of points that I didn't know about because I didn't really see it in terms of a nutritional side of things. I saw it as a CrossFit Games getting bigger than Progenics.
And that's how you discussed it.
And not saying that Progenics is going to be as big as any of these companies out there. The Cokes, the Pepsis. But for this industry, it was surprising to me because of the business aspect, and it almost made me wonder: is CrossFit going to go more mainstream? Like, is Reebok after I don't know when their contract is up, but after Reebok, is it going to be a bidding war? Because I could, Nike has a lot more money than Reebok does. You know what I mean? So, like, when you look at the bigger, Reebok is if it wasn't for CrossFit, if it wasn't for UFC and those type of, like, I think those are probably, and maybe some little bit of hockey here and there. Yeah. I don't think that, Reebok would even be afloat right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's true.
So I took it as,
did give them a rebirth.
Right. And it's cool to see it, and I love it. I love Reebok's brands. I buy all their shoes, and they're a good brand for CrossFit. It's obviously established that as the CrossFit powerhouse.
Well, they were like my grandfather's golfing shoes when I was young.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, awesome. I remember Velcro Reeboks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like you look at that, and I think I saw it, and just because I'm not, and I didn't want to dive into the nutritional because I don't know enough information.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, and I think you come from a company that, a supplement company just like a Progenics or one of those type of brands. So you understand the product more.
Yeah.
When I saw it coming out as a fan of not only Progenics but as the CrossFit Games, and them splitting apart, thinking, is CrossFit going mainstream, and are they forgetting about the people that really CrossFit means about, like the smaller companies,
right,
and things like that. So,
and that's interesting because Greg Glassman has, like, publicly, like, talked about his problems with Adidas,
right?
Who owns Reebok.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting take on it.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder, like, CrossFit and the CrossFit Games are affiliated together. Obviously there wouldn't be a CrossFit Games if it wasn't for CrossFit, but like, could we see a day 5-10 years in the future where CrossFit and CrossFit Games are two separate entities? You know what I mean? Like,
I think absolutely we could.
You know what I mean? Like, so, because you're seeing CrossFit athletes being sponsored by Red Bull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, and you're seeing these big name companies like a Nike and stuff like that, where 4 or 5 years ago weren't even close to the game, weren't even in the game, but you're seeing them now and they're popping up. And at the end of the day, CrossFit Games is a business. They're going to take whoever wants to have the most money.
Yeah.
It's a business, and it's a niche that has a lot of people watching.
And it's fast growing, and it hasn't topped off yet. So, the CrossFit Games, have you been?
I've not. I've not.
So I went in 2014, the last year Rich ever won, I think.
Yeah.
But the CrossFit Games have been selling out in 15 minutes.
For sure.
For a while now.
It's hard to, I know people that have tried to get tickets, and it's one of the hardest tickets to get.
It is, yeah. You've got to stand in line on the internet
like
a kook, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but just to give you perspective, like, so the CrossFit Games left Carson, California, the Home Depot Center. Now they're in Madison, Wisconsin. Well, the San Diego Chargers, have moved into the Home Depot Center.
I saw that. Yeah. I saw that.
So literally a stadium that was too small for CrossFit is now this, and we have a lot of San Diego listeners because we're a San Diego-based business.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't want to talk too much shit about your football team, but a stadium that was legitimately too small for a bunch of people exercising really fast is big enough for your football team.
Yeah. I don't know what that says about their football team, but
nothing great.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, if you get back into it, so what the hell were we talking about? Oh, CrossFit Games and CrossFit.
Yeah, right.
So I think that they're absolutely two different things. And if you listen to interviews, I heard Greg Glassman on a podcast recently, the School of Greatness podcast.
Yeah.
And it's actually really good. But every time I hear him talk, and I've gone to see him speak a couple different times, every time I've seen him talk, he really focuses on the lifestyle. He focuses on, like, you know, the soda thing really matters. The sugar thing matters to him.
Right.
You know, he's like, if you ask him what his proudest accomplishment is, he talks about the fact that, like, body image has been reimagined for women, right?
Yeah, definitely. No doubt.
Yeah, which is one of the epic things about CrossFit. But then you look at the CrossFit Games, and I mean, they're so far separated from what CrossFit, the lifestyle, is.
Right.
You know, I mean, and I was telling you before this, or no, we were actually talking about on the show earlier, when you start training for the CrossFit Games, you realize, like, how gnarly it is to try to get there.
Definitely. And I think it's become a huge, I mean, with the introduction of, you know, ESPN covering it and, you know, it getting that relationship with them, the more eyes that you see it, you know, it wasn't a CrossFit commercial, but CrossFit was in a Super Bowl commercial for, I think it was a beer commercial.
Yeah.
But, like...
Were they?
Yeah, like, because I think they said, like, Dan Bailey and Brooke Entz and one other person was for, like, a millisecond or something like that. But, like, you're seeing CrossFit, whether they're going to, you know, straight out say it's CrossFit or not, you're seeing it become a nationwide, a worldwide thing in front of the biggest audiences in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Lauren Fisher, Nike athlete, was in that commercial with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, that's right.
She was. You know what I mean? So it's definitely getting attention of mainstream now. I mean, I think I've read like $4 billion economy by some estimates.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah. Part of me wants to see them keep the brands like Reebok that were there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Only because, and you know, you don't know what happened behind closed doors or how the talks went.
Right.
But you want to, like, me personally, like, my inclination is, like, support the people that supported you when you were doing the garage gym thing, right? Like when we started CrossFit.
100%.
When did you start?
2012.
Oh, okay.
So I started in a garage. Like, I started in Ben Smith's garage. Like, the infamous garage that is Ben Smith's.
Uh-huh.
That's where I started.
Nice.
Right in his cul-de-sac, right in his parents' garage where he started. That's where I started, too. So, you know, I got a lot of respect for the garage waters out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're in your garage right now.
Yeah, we are.
Sitting on rogue boxes.
Couple rogues.
And then Ben Smith, his brothers are animals too, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they are so crazy. I actually interviewed Alec and Dane last week for my podcast.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, they are, first off, the best family you'll ever meet. I mean, one of the nicest, most humble kind of best family that you will ever meet just in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like, Alec was was one of the top gymnasts in the country when he was younger. I think a car crash kind of sidelined him for a little bit. But I mean, he's a monster. He was one of the top athletes in the grid league this past year.
Yeah.
His brother, I mean, is younger than both of them and probably stronger at this point in his life than Ben and Alec both were.
Really?
So
are we going to see them in the games?
I could see them both. I would love to. I would love to see all three of them in the games. I mean, I think that would be the coolest thing. Just because I've seen them since they started. I've seen them. I grew up with them. You know what I mean? Like, so seeing them from where they were in high school and, you know, kind of growing up through the trenches, and then seeing what Ben's done, and obviously Ben won the game a couple years ago, and them kind of taking those footsteps of him. It'd be amazing to see all three of them there at the same time.
And Ben's been in it for a while, but he's still pretty young, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 26. He'll be 27 this year. I think he turns 27 in May.
Yeah.
So he's same age as me. He's been to 8 straight CrossFit games. I think the only person
that's out of control
is Becca Voigt.
Yeah.
She's been to 9.
Ben Spieler?
Chris Spieler. Yeah.
How many did he go to?
I think he went to 6. But I think he was there from like the very first year until a couple of years ago.
So his final one was the one I went to.
Correct.
And in the tennis stadium on the power clean ladder?
Yeah.
It was like speed ladder.
Oh, yeah.
When he was on the final weight, I don't remember what it was. But
yeah, it was a lot.
It was his final lift in the CrossFit Games, and that place had erupted, dude. Bigger than any stadium I've ever been to a football game.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wild.
He's a legend, and we've had him on the pod. I mean, I remember when I reached out to him and I got him on the podcast. I think he was going to England or doing a seminar out in Europe.
Yeah.
And it was one of the coolest things because if you're into the sport of CrossFit and you follow it at any point, you know Chris Spieler is. He's a living legend.
Right.
When he's as close to, a Hall of Famer, a first ballot in CrossFit just because of what he's done and what he did over the years.
Yep.
And, when I was able to get him, it was just, I was like, oh my gosh. But super nice guy. But, I mean, he's one of those guys that, not the biggest guy in the shed.
Not even close.
But, kind of went in there with that attitude and adapted over 6-7 years or however many years he went and kind of did his thing.
That was the impressive thing about him, and then the NorCal CrossFit, Jason Khalipa.
Yeah, Khalipa, man.
Both of them were there at the ranch in the very first one. If you watch, was it Every Second Counts or something?
Yeah.
That first CrossFit Games video, and it's like, arguably right now, if you took anybody that's like middle of the pack in CrossFit, like even middle of the pack in regionals, they would absolutely dominate CrossFit in 2007.
No doubt.
So the fact that, specifically Chris Spieler and Jason Khalipa, specifically them, because they started there when it was like nothing,
Yeah.
And the fact that they're still able to compete just, now or a few years ago,
and they're
absolutely out of control.
And they're still, they may not be at their peak, but they're still at the top of their game.
Yeah.
Like Khalipa arguably is still one of the top CrossFitters out there.
Right. And you have to wonder if he win it, because he goes team now.
Yeah.
But him and Rich, you have to wonder, like, if they win individual.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you got to think those guys, and you could arguably put those guys separated on a different, pedestal.
Right.
Just because of the dominance that they had. And, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I'd put Ben right there with them. But, they were that rivalry.
Well, I think you could. He was a champion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you put that rivalry there, between the three of them over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And you see them from where they were in their first games to where they are now, where they become staples in the sport.
Right.
That no one, I think, ever even imagined 10 years ago.
Right. And so that increased fitness level, that brings me to my next point.
Yeah.
The other chalk talk that you did that I just listened to was the steroids in CrossFit.
Yeah.
And you brought up something that I think a lot of people, at least I've heard talking about, is the fact that CrossFit is tested. They have an outside source test.
Yep.
But then those results have to be disclosed to CrossFit.
Correct.
And so your kind of hypothetical or your theory was, how easy would it be for CrossFit to not disclose?
Yeah.
Because arguably it wouldn't be great for their brand if a top CrossFitter test.
Exactly. I mean,
positive.
and when it was, I don't like, I'm usually not I try not to get too controversial.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But when it's an issue with advantage and performance enhancing drugs, steroids, and things like that, and exactly, people, it's in their mind, it's a common thing that comes up in CrossFit, especially when a test is, when a results are revealed and people are suspended for a couple of years.
Right.
It's happened. But at the same time, I don't think I've seen, there's been a couple big names, regional athletes and maybe one or two games athletes that have gotten popped.
Yep.
But you have never seen that one or two big faces of the sport to ever go. And it kind of go back to where the chalk talk went. CrossFit has to see that list because they're the ones that release it to the public. They could very well just say, hey, we're going to scratch that name because it's bad for our brand.
Right, exactly. So if I'm CrossFit, right,
Yeah.
if I'm making any kind of decision there, and maybe this is why I'm not making a decision, but it makes sense to pop someone who's good,
Right.
but not great.
Yeah.
Reason being, then I can say, hey, look, I do test, and at the same time, if I'm telling you CrossFit is the superior fitness regimen, right, which is what they do, which is their whole thing, and a lot of people believe that, well, then if somebody were to test positive that's at the top of that sport,
For sure.
it would be easy for all these trolls and the internet haters to be like, oh, see, you just did steroids, and you're actually not that fit, right?
Right, yeah.
And so that's kind of the big argument there, but what do you think? You think top?
And I think, and I don't know, I think it would be, honestly, I think it would be good for the sport if a big name came, just to see how CrossFit reacted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I would love to see, because you look at all these, if they want to be on a major league sport pedestal like the Major League Baseball, like, and they have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But if they want to be compared to those types, they want to make fitness a professional sport, a big name, and maybe no big name has tested positive. You know, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like maybe nothing has happened, but if something did happen and they're hiding it, they need to just come out and say something, because they need to see. Yes, it would affect their brand. It would obviously hurt their company. It wouldn't help their company.
Yeah.
But to see how they bounce back from that and go from there. So,
did you see the article a few years back? I think it was T Nation. I can't remember who made the article, but they had some parameters, and their parameters, essentially this guy was a strength coach, and he figured out with all of his athletes, the natural ones, though, and then the ones that were on some kind of steroid, he figured out these parameters, basically like strength to body weight ratio.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay.
It was like all these numbers that, like, if you were higher than that, more likely to be taking something if you were lower. And I only saw like a couple of people. I think Ben was one of those people that were like right at average.
It was like Ben, and I think Josh Bridges was the other one.
Right, yeah.
And pretty much everybody else, he was like, no way, they have to do it.
Right.
You know?
100%. I saw that, and I don't know if, and I don't think CrossFit reposted it, but it was probably some CrossFit blog site that I saw. But that surprised me, because it did make you wonder. It brought up the same discussion.
Right.
Okay, what is this testing? Like, is it legitimate? Like,
and that's what you don't know, too. Like,
right,
what
exactly.
Are the parameters?
And like, you know, you don't want to, as a person that loves the sport, as a person that talks about it, a person who reports on it all the time, and that's kind of what I love to do. I got a passion for this industry. You know, like, you hope it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, you would like to see how CrossFit reacts and how CrossFit bounces back from it.
Yeah. Part of me is surprised that they even care in the first place. I mean, I guess because they want to be mainstream. Yeah. But Greg Glassman is kind of, I mean, he's a pretty staunch libertarian.
For sure.
And they're the live, let live crew, and let live crew, right?
Right.
So, and if you look at a lot of the big sports, powerlifting, some federations do, but strongman, you can't tell me those dudes are tested. World's strongest man, right?
Oh, my gosh.
It doesn't even make sense.
No, it does not make sense.
Yeah. But so, yeah, back to that article. I don't know the validity of that, but it was interesting reading it, because you're like, damn.
Right, and I think we can get so caught up in the numbers. And like you said, I think if there weren't any, if it was just words, and, you know, not everyone's going to, but if there were numbers to go with the words.
Yeah.
And I think that's what popped out. Like, I don't think anyone probably thought, they just saw the numbers, and because that's probably what a lot of people, when they opened the article, probably went right to. They tried to find a bunch of numbers. Who's doing what, you know, what's the basis of this test? Why are people so up here? Why is Rich Froning and Jason Khalipa above, you know, 30, 40 points above Ben Smith and Josh Bridges?
Right.
Why is that? And you look at them, and you're like, they got to be taking something. But then you're like, maybe they are not. Maybe they're just gifted, and maybe they're just that good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think even if you were taking something, it's not going to be. I don't even think now, with the level that CrossFit's at, like, I don't even know if you could juice yourself to the middle of the pack.
Right.
I mean,
no doubt. And I think, as you're 100% right. I think it's one of those things where maybe those athletes that are getting popped 3-4 years ago, when it probably would have been their system, and I don't know how fresh these results are when they're releasing them, maybe they were top of the game. Right. You know what I mean? I mean, Natalie Newhart made it to the games, and then she got popped this past year. She's out for a couple of years. You know,
that just happened.
You know what I mean? So, like, she's, I think, the only games athlete, and I think Sharice Chan. And so there's been some team people, but for the most part, it's been lower level regional athletes that make it to regionals.
Which
but
fits into the theory.
Exactly, no doubt. I mean, your theory is perfect. We'll put it out there so people can start saying, hey, you don't do it enough. But at the end of the day, like, and like I said, it's all hypothetical.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just being journalists. Maybe we're just looking into it, which is not a bad thing to do.
Right.
You know, like.
And for the record, I don't care.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Like,
these people are animals. I don't care what they're doing.
Right.
They're
like,
animals.
it's one of those things where you look at, and this is a whole other topic, and I don't want to go off on that, but like, you look at steroids in baseball, you look at steroids in every other sport out there. It made the sport more exciting. It made the sport better.
Without a doubt.
You know what I mean? Like, you look back at Sammy Sosa and Martin McGuire, those are the two, and Barry Bonds, like, when they were going back and forth, hitting all those home runs.
That was the most exciting MLB season
ever.
No
question.
Yeah.
Like, I love baseball, and I loved, regardless of what your stance is on steroids, whatever, like, that was exciting. Do I want to see it? No, but, like, if it's allowed, if people are doing it, I don't think it's fair for them to be doing it and someone else not to be doing it.
Right,
like, that's where I kind of differ on that, where if it's good for the sport, great, but I don't think it's good if 2 or 3 people are doing it and trying to hide it, and then the rest are trying to do it, naturally or however, and kind of, not making it pay off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then, then there's the argument of, like, well, if they're that talented at doing it, too, right?
Sure,
that's a whole other... look at the Lance Armstrong case, right?
Yeah.
And you look at his medals got stripped, and there's a bunch of tours there where Lance Armstrong, who won the Tour de France, later tested positive, had all of his medals stripped, and some of those you had to go back like 18 or 19 spots to find a guy that was drug-free. Right. And it's just like, at that point, it's like, can we just agree that he was still the best athlete?
Right. And honestly, like... It's gonna sound real. I'm not into like big conspiracy theories or anything. But I think he's innocent. I don't think he did anything wrong. I think.
Wait, who?
Lance Armstrong. I think Right. Trust me.
Trust me.
Okay. I think he got paid so much. Because think about it. Why is Oprah doing that interview in the first place? I think he got paid so much money. He didn't care about the medals. He didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
He just wanted, because Oprah paid a ton of money for that interview. That's my thought. And like I said, this is me coming in. But like, he had obviously some medical issues and stuff like that he was dealing with. But, at the end of the day, and like you just said, you had to go 18, 19 spots. Like, people are doing it all the time. Right. It's just whoever's going to get caught first. Yeah. And normally the big name is going to get slapped on the head. Yeah.
And well, so we kind of just derailed into pro cycling conspiracy theories, but
that's a episode for another day.
Yeah, for sure. But going back to that article and the whole thing about these guys being outside of parameters, the only other thing I wanted to say about that is that might be true, and that guy might have parameters, but at the same time, CrossFit, what it is, this functional fitness that moves through all these different modalities, has completely broken the paradigm, completely reshaped everything that you see in the fitness world. Because before that, it was believed that you had to be strong or fast.
Agreed.
You had to be strong or fast, or you had to have good endurance.
Right, for sure. Right?
And now you got these guys that are getting stronger, like almost to the point where they're competitive in weightlifting. Yeah. Right? You got dudes, some of them, can't remember the guy that pulled a 750-pound deadlift at the games.
Oh, Sam Dancer.
Sam Dancer.
Freaking nuts.
And that's the same guy that can do muscle ups.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the other thing. At the CrossFit Games, if you can even last the weekend of doing workouts, like I competed in the Granite Games, which is like a 3-day competition. And at the end of this thing, like, dude, I was broken. Right. I couldn't even put my arms over my head.
For sure.
I was just fucking smashed. Like, that's an endurance. And I'm going to, now, I'll say I'm an endurance athlete. Like, I'm kind of a fat kid out there struggling, but...
Heck, you just told me that you just freaking ran 100K.
Yeah, Sunday.
I don't want to hear anything about you not being you're an endurance person.
But, dude, at the end of the Granite Games, arguably I was just as broken.
For sure.
It's an endurance event.
Definitely, right.
So, we had this notion where you could go in the gym and you could do, 4 sets of 15 and get big. Right. Or you could do 5 sets of 3 and get strong. Right. Or you could run far, or you could run fast. But there's no way you could do it all. And so part of me wants to also say, like, okay, sure, you have these parameters, but parameters are kind of bullshit because CrossFit just completely reshaped the entire paradigm.
No doubt, for sure.
So that's the other thing I think people have to keep in mind. And that article did get pretty popular. So
yeah, it definitely went viral. And I think especially in this industry, that was a big deal. When we didn't really, I don't think we had heard anything since then about testing or anything like that. You know what I mean?
So either,
and maybe just because the sport wasn't as popular 3-4 years ago, and that's probably exactly what it is. But, kind of go from there. So, yeah.
So do you do Ben Smith? Do you do his programming?
Since
program for you?
Yeah. So I work out. Sometimes I'll go to Krypton and work out there. Other times I'll just go. Me and 2 other friends that went to high school with him. We'll just normally just go to his house 3 days a week and just do whatever he programs. That's normally what his programming is the next day or the next week.
Yeah.
So normally we test the workouts out, and if he likes them, he'll program for everyone else. So.
Okay. Does he destroy you in workouts?
Oh my gosh, it's nuts.
You ever beat him though? And you're like that one time.
I think I've beaten him off the assault bike maybe once, like at the beginning of the workout, like I'll beat him, but then I'm dead by the second round.
Yeah.
Or
here's what you got to do. You got to videotape that.
Right?
I'm and then sprint on the first round, and then cut the video there.
Yeah. Oh, no
Big
doubt.
Red Express beats 2015 World's Fittest Man, and then you're gonna go viral. It's
funny because we work out and. My other two friends aren't really, they're just doing it because it's just a good time for all of us. We're all grown up. They're all married. One of them's got a kid. So, we don't get to see each other that often.
Yeah.
So this is a great time. Exactly. It's a great time to just, catch up, just kind of see how everyone's doing and get a workout in. You know what I mean? So, they hate it. I normally just show up. They try to argue everything that he ever programs. Really? I just show up and I'm let's just do a workout. I was I just want to do it. Let's just dive right into it. I don't care what it is. I'm gonna hate it anyway.
Yeah.
It's gonna be bad. I'm gonna hate Ben. I'm gonna wish Ben never existed after the workout.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's getting me better. It's getting me stronger, faster, whatever. All the parameters you were just talking about.
Right.
It's helping me in my life.
Absolutely.
So.
That's a phenomenon I've tried to. I mean, I'm writing a book right now, and I'm trying to explore that phenomenon. It's when you're in the middle of these things and they're so fucking terrible.
Yeah.
But then when it's over, you're like, God, I want to do that again.
Right.
As soon as it stops.
Oh,
almost.
no doubt.
In the middle of it, you want nothing else but to be done.
You want to end it right there.
Yeah.
But then you go 4 more rounds.
Yep.
And then, and I think mentally you can be okay, I can go a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I can go a little longer. And then by the time you're I can't go any, it's over. You know what I mean? And then you show up the next day and you just keep coming back.
So when you're talking to all of these top CrossFitters, so if people are listening at home, they still are harvesting these pipe dreams about getting to the games, or if they want to, and that's actually one of the beautiful things about CrossFit is if you have the talent, any other sport, football, baseball, there's pretty much a path, and if you don't take that path, you're pretty much not going to get
there.
You're right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think mixed martial arts and CrossFit are the only two left, really, where you could pick it up, you could have the talent and the work ethic if they meet in the right spot.
Yeah.
You don't have to have done it through college or high school.
Right.
You might have been a sprinter in high school or whatever. And, look at Brooke Wells. She came on within 1 year. She was crushing it.
No question.
Yeah. And I don't really know where I was going with that, but if you so when you talk to all these CrossFitters, these top CrossFitters, is there any common traits that you get from them?
Yeah, man. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from, and I've talked to people from Chris Beeler to obviously Ben Smith,
right.
Guys that have been around it forever, Lucas Parker and things like that.
That's right.
And it's one of those things where work is probably the number one thing. These guys, and you see before and after pictures of CrossFit Games athletes that 4 or 5 years ago, they were just your average Joe at a gym.
Yeah.
They showed up, they put the work in, some of these athletes are full-time students, some of these athletes are full-time workers, they've got careers. But, if you're willing to put the work in, you don't have to live at the gym. You don't have to. People have made it a career. People have made it so they can be fortunate enough to live at the gym.
Yeah.
But, there are athletes out there that work out once or twice a day. And if you're willing to put the right food in your body, put the right, surround yourself with the right people, do the right things, you can really get anywhere. Yeah, there may be a little bit thing in your, maybe you do have to be a little bit gifted in some areas.
Right.
It helps. But in the long run, if you're willing to put in that work, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I've, kind of honed in on when I talk to these athletes. They're just regular people that just go into the gym every day. They're just fortunate enough to make that a career, moving forward.
Yeah. So, and if you think about it, it makes sense because at the end of the day, it's a sport of work capacity, right?
Yeah.
How much work can you fit in?
Right.
Because I remember when I was pushing really hard the year I went to the Granite Games, I was trying to make something out of it. I was programmed by OPEX, formerly OPT, and programs a lot of the top guys. And I was talking to my coach, and I'm he's asking me how the program's going, and I'm it's good, but dude, it's a lot. I'm in the gym 5 or 6 hours a day, and I'm broken down and hurting, And he's and I'm I'm trying to figure out can we lean off of this thing?
For sure.
And he's well, not really, man. Not if you want to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where some of the genetics will come in play.
Definitely.
Is like, can you just handle that much work?
Right. And one of the people that I've wanted to get on for so long, haven't been able to yet, but Valerie Volbro. She's been to the games 6-7 times.
Creatine coffee. She takes one of my
Does
products.
she? Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Perfect. But, I mean, she's a school teacher.
Yeah.
She goes to the gym. I think she's been quoted saying like once or twice a day, like probably during the school year, she probably can only go once a day.
Yeah.
She's been to the games 7 times, 6 or 7 times.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, if that's possible, if you can juggle handling a teaching career, which is nonstop. She's a 4th grade teacher, which means she's got to deal with little annoying kids all day.
Yeah.
And if you can make it to the CrossFit Games as much as she did, when the competition was at its peak, when you over the past few years, when she did, anything's possible. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to stay at the gym 5-6 hours. You don't have to go to the gym 3-4 times a day for a couple hours each time to make it to the games.
Yeah.
You just got to put in the work. And I think so many people now, like, the garage gym, I think, has become bigger than it has since people started using the word garage gym.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what Rogue, I'm sure they sell a lot of them, but Joe's business that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
I would say 90% of the business that guy gets are people wanting racks installed in their garage.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's the thing. It's like if you want to put in 2-a-days, I mean, that's how I did it too. It's like one time we'll be at the gym and the other time, because you just can't live at the gym.
Exactly. And I mean, you got these athletes that have families, that have other jobs, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not fortunate to own a CrossFit gym, and, I don't know how, I've never really talked to athletes about the money, because you don't talk about money, but unless you're Rich Froning or some of these guys that have won the games or placed high at the games, the payout isn't really that much for a year's salary, you know what I mean? Like, you almost have to, own a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, you do. You have to, or be a coach.
Right,
Because most companies in CrossFit, they don't have, even like Killcliff, like I think they only have a couple paid athletes.
Yeah, like, and most of those companies will pay by performance. So if you don't place in the top 3 of the CrossFit Games in an event, you're not going to get paid a bonus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, and placing top 3 in the CrossFit Games in any event, it may be one of the hardest things to do.
Right, for sure.
So,
and that's something that is not specific to CrossFit. Like, if you want to be great in anything, maybe not formal sports like baseball and football, because we could argue that NCAA athletes might make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a great musician or a great speaker or a great writer or a great CrossFit athlete or fighter or combat athlete or whatever you have, there's a transition phase where you have to like put shit on the line.
Yeah.
You have to dedicate time with, the hope of a payoff, and the chances aren't great. They're not in your favor.
Not at all. And I think, you see these athletes that most of them were students and getting their degree and things like that. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think Matt Fraser was getting like a double major, from wherever he was going. That's why he couldn't go to the Invitational or any of these. So he's just finished up school. So, Ben Smith, he's graduated with an engineering degree from ODU. He missed his own graduation to win regionals that same year.
Animal.
You know what I mean? So, like, it's one of those things where, like, you look at this, and I think as a fan, both of us, everyone can get caught up in this. These guys are larger than life. These guys are elite athletes. That's all they do is train.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, probably 75, 80% of these guys don't live in the gym. They don't own a gym. They don't coach at a gym. They've got real jobs.
Or going to school.
Or going to school or doing this thing. And as things get more and more competitive, you're going to see that number go higher of people that are living at the gym or coaching at the gym, because you just got to keep up.
Right. I saw just a post the other day. It was like in her story, Camille LeBlanc, who's won the CrossFit Games, much like Ben Smith.
Yeah.
Been there a bunch of times. She'd won one time. She's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest known, female athlete. And she posted something about her homework. I'm like, what? Why are you doing homework? Like, what are you doing? You just think you're a pro athlete at that point. Like,
right. And I think we see them as celebrities. And I think that's one of the biggest things when I started talking to them. And you meet I don't know, you've been to the Granite Games, so there's obviously some big name athletes down there.
Oh, yeah.
I've emceed at Wodapalooza the last couple of years.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So, you're seeing the elite of the elite, the best athletes in the world competing, and they're just regular people. They'll stop and take your picture, they'll do all that, but at the end of the day, they may be working, they may be going to school, we said it a couple times, but like, they're just regular people who just happen to be very good at this thing we call CrossFit.
Right. Yeah, and Facebook likes or Instagram likes don't always translate to money.
Oh, no doubt. And obviously it's more marketable. If an athlete is very big and very active on social media, it'll pick up a lot more attention, and you'll get more attention from other companies. But I think a lot of people think, oh, these guys are making tons of money from all these sponsors, when at the end of the day, they're probably just getting either free merchandise or free product or, free stuff. They're probably not getting too much paid.
Yeah. And then you have a lot of, the bigger names in CrossFit aren't even CrossFit athletes.
Right.
Which is a weird paradigm that you've seen happen in the last couple of years.
For sure.
It's like they've just become kind of Instagram models.
Yeah, and it's weird because, I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm not going to need to call anyone out, but you see that. And I think it's more the female side of things. Just because there's more of a market for female people to look good in nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and good on them for building a business.
Right, exactly. Nothing, at the end of the day, CrossFit athletes, they're a brand. Like, they are their own brand. They represent their own brand. Mm-hmm. But first and foremost, they are Ben Smith. They are Rich Froning. They are Jason Khalipa. They are, Brooke Wells, Camille LeBlanc-Bazinet. Like, they are all those people. Like, they're themselves.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's who they are. No matter what brand they're sporting, no matter what, company they choose to have represent them or anything like that. At the end of the day, they support their brand and whatever's best for their brand.
Right. And I think that's one of the problems that CrossFit is probably, I don't know if it's a problem for CrossFit, but it's going to be hard to get new blood without some kind of feeder program, without some, at some point the money has to catch up to the athletes because, they are spending X amount of hours in the gym every day.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I really liked about Grid League, which I don't know how successful they really were or have been, but they provided another opportunity for people that are like laying it out on the line to make money.
100%. I think that was, so many, and I think the first year of Grid League was a little bit sketchy because, I don't think they kind of rushed into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But this past year, I watched a lot, and obviously, Alec was on Baltimore and stuff like that, and you see some of these CrossFit, but it is a fun thing to watch. Like, if you sit down and watch it, like 2 hours will go by like that.
Yeah.
A whole 12 matches or whatever they have, it'll go by quick because it's constantly moving. It's constantly, it's not any 20-minute workout that you just got to sit like, all right, when are they getting back from that Murph run?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it was cool, too, because it highlighted, like, I just never realized, like, how special a specialist really was.
Right.
You got these people in the rings they could do muscle-ups forever.
Oh, it's freaking crazy.
They'll probably never get to the games because they don't have a deadlift or whatever.
Right.
But you get to see them in Grid League, like, busting out 50 muscle-ups at a time.
And it makes you appreciate, those skilled athletes because it's a fun thing. It's given that avenue for the regional athlete. They may make it to regionals because a lot of those athletes on there are regional athletes. Mm-hmm. But like you said, they may not ever make it to the games because the competition's getting ridiculously crazy, but they can still go in there and be competitive with everyone else.
Yeah. So last kind of question.
Yeah, man.
Since you work out with Ben a lot and stuff, what's his programming? What's his day-to-day like?
I think he wakes up in the morning.
That's what everybody always wants to know. Like,
right.
With Rich Froning, with all the champions, like, what are they doing,
I think he wakes up, he has breakfast, probably just like eggs. You'd be surprised. You see a lot of athletes, and I think, just real quick before I go into it, you'll see, I talk to a lot of athletes about their diet. Because that's one of the biggest things people want to know. What are you eating? Like, are you eating good or are you eating bad? Like, what are you eating? Because I want to eat what you're eating because you're obviously good, and I want to be just like you. Like, Ben may be the cleanest eating person that I've ever talked to.
Really?
I mean, he eats, steak and rice, steak and veggies. He eats eggs and bacon, sometimes it's not even bacon, you know what I mean? Like, he eats very clean for someone that works out 5 times a day, you know what I mean? So, like, all right, so that was just something that you'd be surprised how poorly CrossFitters eat on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're burning so many calories.
Right,
like
I mean, they have to.
You got to replace them.
Exactly.
Like the Michael Phelps.
No doubt.
Came out about him eating
freaking 12,000 calories. Yeah. So stupid.
Yeah.
But so, like, I think he wakes up, he goes to the gym. We'll probably do, like, a little, rowing. Maybe he'll squat, depending on how he's feeling.
Yep.
Goes home. Then he'll go back around 10 or so. He'll work out with all of his coaches.
Yep.
Then he'll take a couple hours off, have lunch, which depending on what it is, Perdido. I don't know if you've ever been to Burrito Perdido, but
no, you're always pushing them.
It's the most amazing thing ever.
Hold on, where is it? What is it?
It's on Cedar Road.
Okay.
It's in Chesapeake.
All right.
It's California. It's California style burrito. So
do they sponsor the Big Red Express?
They
or
do.
You just love
no,
them?
they.
Okay.
Even if they didn't sponsor,
Yeah.
I would still plug them all the time because they are incredible.
I've given up on a perfect burrito since moving from California.
Yeah, this is probably as close as you're going to get to a perfect burrito.
All right.
Not being in California,
Check
but
this out.
yeah, you should.
Okay.
So then I think he'll go back around 4 or 5 and do a training sesh, and then I think that'll be it for the day.
Nice.
So maybe 3-4 times.
Yeah.
Some strength, some just a good 30-45 minute workout.
Yep.
And a little secret, he doesn't plan these things days in advance.
Yeah, none of them do.
Normally he shows up, whatever he's feeling like doing, whatever everyone else is feeling like doing, that's what they'll do. The rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say none of them do, but a lot of them, from what I've seen, especially because when you're trying to make it, you're like, if I'm one of these guys, if I'm Ben Smith, I'm going to be like, dude, I go into my lawn and I pull up the grass. I eat that first thing in the morning just to see how many of these kooks I can get to be outside eating their own grass. But a lot of them, they listen to their body. That is what it comes down to. They program that day, and if they're like, I'm really sore. Like I worked out with Josh Bridges a bunch, and you really just they sit there around the whiteboard and they just start throwing movements up.
Right, because most of the time he's probably going to do every single movement known imaginable.
Yeah.
Probably 2-3 times a week. You know what I mean? So probably going to do it in the morning. Probably won't do it in the evening. Vice versa. Next day he'll probably do a little bit more. So, it varies, and I think you're going to see that with more and more people that don't get their programming from an outside source.
Yeah.
Or that don't have, themselves as, they're their own coach.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and if you are, not knocking it at all, but that was one of the problems I had with an outside source is, if you're doing templated programming, it could be, there has to be a certain point where you listen to your body when you're working out.
For sure.
And, so for me, it was I would have these templated workouts, and I would be like, well, my shoulders are smoked, but it says I have to do overhead squats, so I'm going to do them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think
100%. And I think, and programmed people that do have coaches from outside, probably the biggest success is Ben Bergeron. You know what I mean? He programs and he's coached a lot of the top games athletes. Katrin, Frazier,
Brooke Wells now.
Yeah,
that dude's on my entrepreneur dream team.
Yeah, he's
a sleeper.
He's an unbelievable. He's very underrated, but everyone knows the name Ben Bergeron.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And obviously but I think he respects the athletes and saying, hey, if your body's not telling you, if your body's telling you not to do it, don't do it. Like I said, I've never met him. I've never talked to him.
Yeah.
But I can imagine someone that's had that much success with so many athletes, he has to know when to and when to not push athletes.
Yeah, if you follow his Instagram and stuff, he just drops these little knowledge bombs, kind of like everyone does these days. They make a meme of themselves and they make their own quote and they put it on there.
Yeah.
But his, I read them and I'm like, dude, they're profound.
Right,
he
no
kills
doubt.
it.
Yeah.
He was talking about at one point he was like, yeah, me and Katrin at no point have we ever had a conversation I want to win the CrossFit Games.
Right.
It's they're that dialed into what they're doing at that exact moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of the top guys, Kalipa says the exact same thing. He'll go out there and he has whatever. If he has 20 minutes to work out, he's only thinking about that 20 minutes. He's not thinking about trying to make it to the CrossFit Games.
Right.
He's let me get the maximum amount of effort out of this movement that I'm trying to do.
I think Ben's the same way. He goes into it. He just has fun. Mm-hmm. And I think I've never seen someone have as much fun coming up with workouts, as much fun programming with his brothers, with his coaches.
Right.
Whoever he's working with. He just has fun with it. You know what I mean? And I think that's another thing. If you're not having fun, what's the point of doing it at the end of the day?
Yeah. And that's the other thing. If you're one of these people that is still harvesting these dreams of trying to get there, it's don't make yourself miserable.
Right.
Remember
100%.
why you're doing this in the first place.
Exactly.
That's kind of where I got to. I'm I just need to work out because I like working out.
Right.
Again,
For sure. You don't want to
get that reset.
Yeah. You don't want to go into it thinking because everyone's done it in CrossFit. You're going to go into a workout thinking, I'm going to hate this workout.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're going to show up the next day and do another one that you're going to hate.
Yeah.
You may hate the workout, but you enjoy showing up.
Yeah.
You enjoy doing it.
It's funny because after you CrossFit, you realize like how these little things, like I'm just looking at the workouts on your fridge right now, and like 21, 15, 9, hang power cleans, lunge, and jerk.
Push jerk.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, that's, if I were to walk into this in 2009 and I look at these, I'm like, oh, you're doing a superset.
Right.
That's not a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you do it and you feel like you've been sucking on a tailpipe. And you're like,
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or plug? I mean, let's...
Yeah, man, Big Red Express on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much everywhere where podcasts are given out for free. So it's free. All you got to do is just search it, just the Big Red Express podcast. You can just subscribe. Pretty simple like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best way you get it. You'll get every episode downloaded. We're doing giveaways during the Open. I'm going to be giving away some Caffeine and Kilos coffee. I'm going to be giving away a free month of Ben Smith Blueprint.
Oh, nice.
Of Ben Smith's programming. So that's going to be like the grand prize at the end of the Open.
Oh, very cool.
So just pay close attention to our Facebook page and all of our social media and stuff like that. So.
And Instagram, it's at the Big Red Express?
At big_red_express.
Okay.
But
very
if
cool.
you type in the Big Red Express, I'm the only one that has to do with CrossFit. So.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's what I did.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. Subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. For all of your supplement needs and for show notes, visit luaviv.com.